Welcome to our YouTube channel on Jobs and Careers. Today we'll be dealing with some of the most powerful and beautiful programming language, something known as Java. So we'll be starting with the first initial classes. So now going forward we'll be having multiple series of Java where you can learn what is core Java and advanced stuff. So now today to begin we'll see what is Java, what made Java come into an existence, what is the history on Java. So we'll try to see what is the drawbacks in the programming languages or what made an effort to make something known as Java with respect to programming languages. So now Java. So this was developed in the year 1995 by Sun Microsystems. Sun Microsystems. Later this is owned by Oracle Corporation. Now Java we call it as an platform independent or write once run anywhere. So going forward to all these things we'll try to see what made this Java to come into an existence. So what are the drawbacks which were there in the programming languages which made up to evolve a programming language something known as Java. So before that we have to understand some of the basics with respect to computers. Now with respect to computer, if I have a computer, assume this computer is of 1985. Now this is the machine that I was using in year 1985. What does a computer consist of? It consists of, a mouse, something like this. It consists of a keyboard. So this is a computer. So how does computer understand? Computer always understands things in terms of 1 or 0. It should be plus or it should be minus. So now one important component in this computer would be a processor. The processor is the very important part of the computer. Now if I want a program, if I want an output for 1 plus 2, what should be the output? It has to be 3. How do I give it to a processor so that I'll get an output 3? How do I write it? Now I'll write a simple C program. I write a simple C program, something like print f1 plus 2. Now when I compile this, I'll get a assembly level language code, something like allocate A, like 1, allocate B. Now we are assigning memories, allocate B. Now we are assigning memories. Now I'll try to add A plus B. So this might not be the exact assembly level language program, but when I say add A plus B, this converts to 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 if it is an 8-bit machine, and it gives to the processor. Assume the processor that I am using is Intel. Now I get the output as 3. So this is a very basic flow. Now here we have a compiler which compiles the program. We have an assembler. So we have an assembler. So the assembler helps us to compile the assembly level programming language into zeros and ones, and it is executed on a machine. Now we have understood a C program if it has to give an output on an Intel processor way back in 1985. Assuming this processor was powered by Intel, we write a simple C program. It compiles, it converts to an assembly level language program. Now again an assembler helps us to compile to a machine level code. Now the machine level code is given to the processor, we get the output. Now assume the same C program you want to execute, or you want to have this assembly level language code to be executed on an AMD processor, something known as AMD processor. Now when you want to execute the same assembly level code on your AMD processor, do you think the instruction that we have used here, something known as add A plus B, would work on AMD processor? It might work, it might not work. The assembly level programming languages is entirely dependent on the processor. Now, the instructions that we write, something known as add A plus B for the Intel processor, may not work for the AMD processor. Now, if I want such a program, it adds two numbers and it gives me the output on any operating system or any processor, what should I do is the question. So on this question, there was a new programming language that was introduced, something known as Java. So now, what was the drawback? We'll try to recap it again and we'll try to see what is the drawback that was there in a programming language, something like C, which executes a native code based on the processors. Now, we'll just recap what is the drawbacks and what made us to introduce a new programming language known as Java. Now I have a simple program, something like print 1 plus 2. Now I give it to the compiler. Now it generates assembly level code. It generates the assembly level code wherein it tries to allocate memory for A 1, so it tries to allocate memory B for 2, it tries to add A plus B, and it calls the operating system to perform the operation. Now once this assembler would convert to 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1, this is nothing but your machine code that executes on your Intel processor. Now if I want the same assembly level code to work on AMD processor, do you think this works? This will not work. Now, how to make it work? There might be another instruction, something known as add or addition A plus B. Now if you give this, it converts to 0 1 1 1 1 0 1. So now you can see the difference. The machine level code in Intel might be different. The machine level code that executes on AMD processor is different. Now this assembly level code is the basic elementary language for all software development. Now this assembly level code is specific to the processors. Now using this assembly level code, you will not be able to execute the programs on different processors. Now if I have this assembly level code, now if I want to give it to an Intel processor, this will work. If I want to give this same to the AMD processor, it will not work. Again, if I want to give this to the Linux operating system with probably IBM processor, it might not work. So now this was the problem that was there before the language Java. When they introduced a new programming language, something known as Java, we came out of this problem. Now the code in the C programming language is always platform dependent. The code is always platform dependent. So if you have an Intel processor, the code or the assembly level language for Intel processors would be different. For AMD processor, it is entirely different, wherein you write one simple program which you will not be able to run on other systems or on the other processors. So now in the second video, we will be seeing how the problem of platform dependency was solved in Java, which is the major and the most important feature, something known as platform independent. We call Java to be a platform independent. So on this concept, we'll be seeing how this Java is platform independent, how the Java programs can be executed on multiple machines. Now we'll be dealing with part 2 on our Java basics. So now we'll see why Java was termed as platform independent. And in the previous video, we saw what is the drawback in some programming languages like C or C++, wherein you write a code, you execute, the executables cannot be run on a different processor. So now how would we make sure, a programming language would be supported on all multiple platforms when you try to give a build. So now we'll be dealing with something known as why Java was called as platform independent. So before understanding what is platform independent, we have to understand what is a platform. The platform consists of the operating system and the processors. As we all use in our daily lives, the frequent and the most used operating system is Windows, and the processor, maybe if you are using, it would be Intel. So now combination of the processor and the operating system seems to be platform, and this is what it has, and this is what we call it as a platform. So the operating system might be Windows, the processor might be Intel. So this we call it as platform. Now Java is called platform independent. So now with an example we'll try to see, or we try to analyze why Java is called platform independent. So we understood what is a platform. The operating system and the processor combines to make a platform. So now this programming language is platform independent. What I mean to say, this program can be run on Windows with the processor Intel, or this can work on Linux with AMD processor. So on this platform as well. So how does this work? How we are able to achieve this, we'll try to see it. Any class that ends with .java would be a Java program. Assume any program that ends with .java is nothing but a Java program. It's nothing but a Java program. So I have written a simple program at .java wherein I write a simple code 1 plus 2. Don't worry about the syntax. We'll just try to analyze why Java was called platform independent. Now 1 plus 2 is the program that I have written with .java extension. Now previously what was happening, this was given to the compiler. Compiler will convert that to an assembly level language program. Then the assembler would convert that to zeros and ones, and it would get executed on the processor. Now the Java programs would not be given directly to the processor. Assume I have a processor with Intel. I have an AMD processor. I have another processor which is powered by IBM. Now my program will not be put onto the processors directly. What happens? There is an important person who sits here in order to make sure this code will be working on all these platforms. How it works, who makes, we'll try to see it. But now I have written a very simple program, 1 plus 2. There is an intermediate person who is sitting here, which helps us to make this program work on all these platforms. Who is this important person, and what he makes and how he makes in order to make the program work on all these platforms is the important question, and this part would be the most important part. Now whenever I write a .java class and I compile, I get a class known as .byte class. So whenever I get a .byte class, when I compile a Java program, I give this .byte class to a person or to a virtual machine called as JVM. Now the JVM is responsible to convert the byte class. Now the byte class would be converted to machine level languages, in other terms as 01, 10, 101. So if it is 8-bit, this is the sequence of code. If it is for AMD, probably the machine level code might be 1100, 1100. For IBM processor, it might be 0011, 0011. So now this might be the code. So what happens here is, whenever you give .byte class, the JVM converts to machine level languages. Now the program that you write in Java would be high level language. Now the JVM is platform dependent. Now the JVM is platform dependent, whereas Java programming languages is platform independent. So now, assuming you are running your add program on your Intel machine or on your AMD processor or on your IBM processor with Windows or with Linux or with Red Hat, you might be running on different platforms. So this is a platform. So these two combines and this becomes a platform. Now this JVM would be platform dependent. What is platform dependent? This assume if you are running your .java program on an Windows machine with Intel processor, the JVM should support Windows and Intel. Now if you are running your .java program on your Linux with AMD processor, the JVM should be supporting Linux. Now if you are running your .java program on your Red Hat with IBM processor, the JVM should be compatible with Red Hat and IBM processor. Now this JVM is platform dependent. So the JVM with respect to the operating system will vary. Now in the previous example, if you want to run a simple program on your Intel processor or on your AMD or on your IBM processors, we need to have multiple machines. Now we will not be having multiple machines. We have just a Java virtual machine which is platform dependent based on the processors and the operating system. So now based on the operating system, if it is Windows, you have to have a JVM which support Windows. Now if you are using Linux, you need to have a JVM which support Linux. So now the JVM is with respect to the operating system. Now whenever you want to do Java programming languages, you have to have a JVM that is specific to your operating system. So the JVM for Windows is different, the JVM for Linux is different, the JVM for Red Hat is different. Your concern is just installing the JVM with respect to that particular operating system. Whenever you compile, you get a byte class. Whenever you give this byte code to the JVM or Java virtual machine, which is platform dependent, it converts to a machine level language and it would be executed on the processors. Now all the work would be taken care by JVM. So now Java programming language is not platform dependent. Now this Java programming language can be written, and when you try to compile and execute, you need to have that respective JVM that is sufficient. Now you write a program in your Windows operating system, now you send it to your friend who is using AMD processor, still it will be able to run because the JVM that we will be using would be of Linux, or it would be of AMD processor with the Linux operating system. Now the programming language will not change and it is not specific to the operating system. Whereas if you use an assembly level program, it has to be platform specific. Now with respect to Java, it can be written using Java and it can be executed on multiple machines with the help of Java virtual machine. Now we'll try to explore what is Java virtual machine in the next video. If you are looking for Java based jobs, please register at www.freshersworld.com. Today we are dealing with some of the core components in Java. So let's understand some of the basic essentials of Java. So let me start with some of the basic concepts, something known as JVM, JRE and JDK. So now, what is JRE, what is JDK and what is JVM? So before getting to know, we have to know how to install this and what it is, right? So now I'll try to go to this link which you are seeing on my desktop, on my notepad. So this is the official link where you'll be able to install JDK for your laptops or for your PCs. So now this is the link. Now you can see some of the versions of JDK, right? You have something known as JDK, you have something known as JRE and other components. So now if I click on this JDK, right? So when I click on this, you'll be pulled to another tab where you'll be seeing the JDK specific to a platform. See, now I'm using Windows, so I should be downloading the Windows JDK. So now before downloading and getting to know, we have to understand some of the basic components, something like what is JDK, what is JRE, what is JVM, right? So what I'll try to do, I'll try to explain you all these concepts in a form of boxes. So right, so I'll try to create few boxes and we'll try to understand what is JVM, what is JRE, where is JRE, where is JDK, and let's try to see what has to be installed and why this website is giving an options like this. So we'll try to see all of these things. So now consider a box. I'll try to write a box. So in this box, I try to consider this as my JVM. So I'll try to write this as my JVM. So what is a JVM, right? So whenever you write a Java program, that has to be compiled. So whenever you try to compile a Java code, it would be converted to a bytecode. So now who converts this? Now JVM helps in conversion of a Java code to a bytecode. Now how it does? JVM acts as an interpreter where it tries to read the code line by line and it tries to convert to the bytecode. So the other name for JVM is nothing but an interpreter. So now JVM is specific to a platform. Now if you are using a Windows system, you need to have a JVM with respect to Windows. Now Java programs can be written anywhere and can be run on any platform. So now how do you do that? Now if you have a Windows machine or if you have a Linux machine, so you try to install JVM with respect to those operating systems. So now if I go back to this link, right? So if I go back to this link, you'll be installing the JDK with respect to the operating system that you try to use on your PC. So now we come back to the explanation. So consider this as a JVM wherein you get your simple Java class converted to a bytecode using JVM, right? So we have some of the components or we have some of the tools supporting for your compilation, right? So what I'll try to do, I'll try to put one more box. So I'll try to name this as my tools. There are many tools actually. So there are many tools. In the coming classes, we'll try to understand what are those tools and why we need it. So there is another command, something known as Java. So this helps me to compile the program or run the program. So the simple syntax, something known as Java, will help me to run it. Fine. So now we have some core libraries which default Java gives. So what are these libraries? And we also call that as an API. So now I'll try to write this in a separate box. So I'll try to write this as my Java APIs. Java APIs. So what is an API? Application Programming Interface. So in the coming videos, we'll see what is an API. Or I can, as of now, I can write it as libraries. I can write it as libs, which helps me in order to support some of my coding. So I'll try to write it as libraries. So these set of tools, right? These set of components, I try to put it in another box. So this I'll name it as my JRE. So now what my JRE consists of? My JRE would be consisting of a JVM, the tools, necessary tools in order to run my program that I have written, and some of the APIs. Now there are few commands that we try to use when we try to run our Java program. So what I try to do, I'll try to put that in another box, right? So I'll try to put it in another box, something known as Java C. So now what does Java C does? Java C helps us to compile my Java code, right? All this, whatever you're seeing on my desktop would be in JRE. So now what does the JRE consist of? The JRE consists of JVM, the tools, and the necessary libraries. So now we are in a position to run the program. So now we have to write the program as well, right? So now, which helps us to write a program? So the JRE helps us in compilation or running a program. So now if we want to write a program, yeah, definitely, without writing a program, we cannot run it, right? So now I'll try to write another rectangle box. I'll try to name this as JDK, right? So JDK, it's nothing but a tool where it helps me to write the programs. Now, whatever you try to install on your system, right? I'll try to go to this, and what is that we are installing? Java Software Development Kit, right? So it's nothing but Java Software Development Kit. So I can try to rename this as JSDK. So Java Software Development Kit. What does this kit consist of? It helps us to write me a program, run the program, and see the output. So one of the important components that we need to understand here is JVM. So now, if you're trying to use a Windows system, you need to have a JVM specific to Windows. So now, if I go to this link, right, you'll be having JVM and the JDK. JDK we have specified, would be consisting of JRE. JRE in turn would be consisting of JVM, Java tools, and the libraries. So whenever you try to install something known as JDK and we try to put it in some path, what we are installing? We are installing all these components. And JRE helps in runtime execution and JDK helps in building a Java application. So now where you need to install it, try to go to this link, and try to press download. So whenever I try to accept the library, and when I click on this, if it's in 64-bit or 32-bit machine, try to click on this, you'll be able to save it. So now once you get that file, what do you have to do? When you try to install, the default installation would be happening on program files. So let that happen and it's fine. So one important component after you install your JDK is you have to make sure your path is set. So how do you set the path? You have to go to the environment variables. So once you get into the environment variables, you have to specify the path. So you have to create a new variable with the name Java Home, right? So once you do this, and you have to specify the folder, right? You have to specify where is your JDK installed. So now when you try to download this and we try to click next, it will be installed in the default location, that is program files, and in your Java it will try to create a new folder, something known as Java, and you will be having your JDK. So now you have to specify this path in the environment variable Java_home. So once you are done, now your setup is ready, and you know what a JRE consists of. JRE helps in execution of a program. The whole component in order to write and execute a Java program, we use JDK. In the coming videos, we'll try to see which are the necessary tools that is there in Java, which helps us to build a Java application with an IDE. Today we are dealing with Java, and let's start how to use Java using Eclipse. So let us understand the basic functionalities of Eclipse. So where do you download the Eclipse? So in the below screen in my browser, you can see eclipse.org/downloads. So here is where we download the Eclipse. The latest version of the Eclipse is Oxygen. So based on your operating system, based on your 32-bit or 64-bit system, you'll be able to download it. So mine is a 64-bit system, so it is showing me 64. So what I have to do, I have to just click on it. I have clicked on it, my software is already installed. So you just have to click on it. So you have to click on next, and you should be able to install it easily. So whenever I click on my Eclipse, it starts. The first thing that it asks us to is to save the location of the projects that you do. So it's asking in the G drive with the folder Java projects, I'll be creating all my projects that we try to create today. So I'll click launch. So my Eclipse is getting launched, right? So now today we'll understand how to represent an object using Java. So what is an object? A pen can be an object, a fan can be an object, a laptop can be an object. So in Java, everything is represented using an object. So now we'll see how to represent an object, and we'll see what is a method, we'll see what is a class. So now my Eclipse is getting installed. So now assume I have a marker here. So this is an object. I have a phone. So this is an object. So let's try writing this object in form of a Java code. Fine. So now I have few projects open, so I'll try to close all of this. Fine. So now this is the console when you try to open your Eclipse that you try to see. The first thing you have to do is you have to go to File. If you want to create a new project, you have to click New. So when you click New, you will get Java project. So we are trying to create a Java project. So I'll try to write the name as first application. So first application. So now the Eclipse tool is built on Java. So now before installing Eclipse, you have to make sure your Java is downloaded. That is, your JSDK is downloaded on your system, because Eclipse is an IDE which helps us to run our Java programs. So basically you need to have your JDK installed before you try to do something with the Eclipse. So this is a very important point. Make sure you guys have the JSDK installed in your laptops before you try to do something with Eclipse. So now I have created my first application. So it's asking me using an execution environment JRE Java 1.8. So this is the latest version of Java that is available. So I have already downloaded it. So in the previous videos, we have shown how to download Java and how to set up an environment variable. So now I have already downloaded my Java. So that is 1.8. So now I'll try to click Finish. So what it happens? Let's see. So my first application is created. So what are these things? These are the applications that I have created before. So now let's concentrate only on this first application. So what I try to do, I'll try to create a new folder. So in Java, we don't call it as a folder, we call it as a package. So now why I'm creating a new folder is, I'll try to keep all my Java classes inside one folder. So now here, I'll try to create a new package, which is nothing but a folder. And whatever the Java classes that we try to write, we'll be putting onto this folder. So now I know you guys doesn't know what is a class, but definitely now we'll see what is a class. So now on an overview, just understand we are creating a directory which is called as a package in Java, and we'll try to put all our files inside that package. So I'll try to create the package name with some name, something like first pack. So the tool is very intelligent. Whenever you try to type something, it shows you, usually starts with a lowercase letter. By convention, package names usually start with a lowercase letter. Yeah, okay, we'll try to follow the rule. FIRST first EXMP. Fine. Now my folder is ready. So what I have to do, I have to represent this marker or this iPhone as a Java object. So in order to represent a Java object, we try to create a class. So what is a class? We'll try to understand this. So I try to create a new Java class. So now I want to represent this phone. Yeah, I want to represent this phone. So what I'll try to create, I'll try to create a class with the name phone. Right? So my class is now created. So what is this? So what is a class? Class is nothing but representation of an object. So if you want to represent a phone in Java, so you need to create a class for it. So how do you create it? Using class, keyword, and the object name. So now the object is iPhone. So we have created a class. We have created just a simple class. Now, for any class that you create, you need to have an open curly braces, and you need to make sure you close that curly braces, right? Now we have a simple class. Now in Java, if you want to run the program, you need to have one method. So what is a method, right? A phone can make a call, right? A call is an action. So in Java, in real time, if an object can perform something, so we can put it as a method to it. So now a phone can make a call, right? A phone can make a call. So that's a method. So now this object phone can also ring. So now ring can be a method. So now I'll try to write a method which is ring Fine, that's okay. Now we have some error. So in Java, a method can return you something or it may not return you something. In this case, I'll make this method not to return me anything. So now a method can return something or a method cannot return you anything. So in the coming classes, we'll see what is a return type, what is a method returns. So when I say generally a method returns something, is mean it's trying to give you some result back. So in this case, I'll try to make sure my method doesn't give me anything out. So I'll try to create a simple statement. You know, this is default Java syntax, which is used to print anything. So now whenever we want to print something in Java, so we use system.out.println. So this is the basic syntax. Whenever you learn Java, this is the basic fundamental. So you can say system.out.println. So I'll try to, you know, put something like, you know, iPhone is ringing, RINGING, right? So now I have a very simple method and a very simple class, that is iPhone, and I have a very simple method, that is ring. So in the next video, we'll try to see how to call this method, and also we'll see what is a main method. So now in Java, one method which is default, mandatory, that you have to write is a main method. So we'll try to see what does this main does and how do you call this iPhone class and how do you make your iPhone ring. So in the last class, we have seen how to create a Java class with the name iPhone. So we have created an iPhone class. So in the last class, we haven't seen how to run this iPhone class. So in Java, we have a method, something known as a main method. So without a main method, your Java programs won't work. So now you need to have one main method at least. If you have created multiple classes, you need to have one main method to make sure your program runs. So now I'll try to create one class, you know, which will start my iPhone. So I'll try to create a new class which will have my main method. So I'll try to create start class. So now I can, you know, select an option, you know, something like void main while creating the class itself. So I'll not try to do that. I'll just try to create a simple Java class that will start my iPhone. So now what will happen, right, if I try to, you know, inherit a method, something known as main. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to add a method main. So I'll try to press MA and control space. You get an options, you know, you get an options, you get suggestions from the tool, you know, main method, right? So now I have got this main method. So now if I try to run my program would get executed. So now what I have to do, I have to start my iPhone class and I have to call a method ring. So now I have to initialize the iPhone class. So what is initialization, right? Now I have an iPhone class. Now I have a start class. Now whenever I do main, a memory gets created for the start class. Now I have to make sure my iPhone also has some memory to get executed on the system, right? So now I have to create a space for my iPhone class. Now my iPhone class should be executed. Now whenever I do start and I have a main method, this class will easily get executed. So the Java will be looking at which class has this main method and the execution starts there. So now I have an iPhone class. I have to make sure some space is allocated in the memory for an iPhone class in order to make sure, you know, my iPhone rings, right? We have written a method ring. So that is nothing but an action. So if an object can perform some action, write it as a method. Very simple. So now I have to create a memory for this. I'll try to write capital I and control space. iPhone, you can see the suggestions, right? iPhone, you write iPhone phone is equal to, you know, I try to make this small letter, iPhone is equal to new, right? New is a keyword which helps us to create memory for the class that we have written. So now if you have 10 different classes like iPhone, a Samsung phone, so you need to create an object. So what I mean by an object, you are trying to allocate some memory for these classes so that when you try to run, so these gets executed, right? So we are trying to create a memory for it. Okay, so I have created a memory, right? Now using this reference, so now I'll try to take my paint and I'll try to explain you guys what is exactly that this syntax would be doing. So I'll try to go to my paint. Yeah, I have my paint here, right? So now what I'm doing is I'll try to create some memory. You know, assume this is my memory. So this is my memory, right? I'll try to create some space over here right? I'll try to create some space over here. So I'll try to give some space for my iPhone. So whenever I try to write a keyword, something known as new, right? Whenever I try to create a new word with the name new, what happens in my memory, a space gets allocated. So now what happens is I have a method in my iPhone class. Coming back here, I have a start method. So what happens in the memory is I'll be having a space for my ring method as well. So I have some space here. So what I have to do now, I have this space. So now I have got this space in my memory. Now I need to execute it. So I need to call this ring. So I'll try to create a reference for this. So I'll try to create a reference with the variable name what we have given. In the start we have given phone. So that is what I'll try to do, right? I try to put phone. So now this memory object is accessed using a variable phone. So now using phone, I want to access phone class, and in the phone class I want to access ring method. So how do I do it? So now in order to access, I have this variable, right? I have this variable that can access to the memory. So what I'll try to do, I need to call this method. So what I'll try to do in Java is phone, okay, phone object, right? In order to access any methods in Java, you need to use dot operator. So the dot operator is used in order to access the method using the class reference. So I have the reference, so dot ring. Fine. So now very simple, what we have done is using a new keyword which allocates a memory for our class, and in that class, as we see here, we have only one method, that is ring, and the memory would get allocated for the ring. Now if I want to call this method, so what I have to do, I have to keep a reference phone, and using phone I have to call the ring method. So in order to call a method in Java, we use dot operator. In order to create memory for the class, we use new operator. Very simple, right? So now I'll try to run my program. So let us see the output. Where is the output? Yeah, now output is here. Phone is ringing. Yeah, my iPhone started ringing. So what I have done, I have created the memory for the phone class, the iPhone class, and I'm trying to access the method using the dot operator. So now in this concept we have to understand two things. A class will be containing many methods. Now a class can contain some variables as well. So now I'll try to make some changes here. So I'll try to declare a string, right? I'll try to declare a string with the phone name has iPhone 7. Okay, spelling mistake, iPhone 7, right? So whenever you write a string variable, you have to make sure that will end with a semicolon. So all the statements, either it should be ending with a semicolon, or it would be having an open curly braces or a closing curly braces. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to assign this iPhone name. Oh, again I have a spelling mistake, please don't mind, right? So now what I'm trying to do is, what happens, so what I'm trying to do is, whenever I call my start method, right, I need to get iPhone 7. So now what happens is, whenever I try to create new, in this scenario I'll try to recreate again. I'll go here. So in my iPhone class I have one more variable, that is my iPhone. So a memory would get created for this as well, iPhone, right? A memory would be getting created for this as well. So now let me run, right? Let me run this. Let's see the output. Yeah, you can see the output, iPhone. Now default in Java, a class name should be given as public. So now we have something known as public, private, and protected. We call this as access modifiers. In the coming videos, we'll see what is an access modifier. For this class, you just understand, if you want to create a class for an object, you have to make sure you write the syntax: public class, the object name, opening curly braces and the closing curly braces. If the object is performing something, you have to make sure that is implemented as a method. So now iPhone can ring. I have done it as a method using open brace and the closing braces. Now to print something, we have a default syntax that is system.out.println, so we are using it. Now coming to the start class, again we have a main method that gets executed whenever you run your program. The Java will be saying, where the class has a main method, and it tries to execute from that point of time, right? So now here we have an iPhone class. This iPhone class, whenever I try to use a new keyword, the memory would get allocated. So like this, in my memory, iPhone gets some space. Now for this iPhone, what all I have? For this iPhone, I have my method as well as a string variable. So again, for a string variable as well as a method, you get the memory. So now in order to access a method, what we use? We try to use this reference. So now we try to use this reference phone, and you want to call a method, use a simple dot operator. Today we are seeing something on overloading in Java. So what is overloading? So let's see by an example. As usual, I have my start class, I have my main method. So I'll try to create a new class with the name iPhone again. So I'll try to create a new class with the name iPhone. Fine. So this is my class. So I have to create some methods in it. So definitely we'll try to do it. I'll try to create a method ring, right? I'll try to create a method ring. As we know, if we want to create a method, just write the method name with open and close simple braces, and try to have a curly braces open and closed. So now the return type is void. Okay. And I'll try to put system.out.println. Print, okay, I'll try to make it print iPhone. iPhone is ringing. Okay, so now my iPhone class is ready. So I'll try to initialize this class iPhone. Okay, iPhone phone is equal to new phone. Yeah. So now I'll try to invoke ring method, right? Dot ring. Okay, so let's see the output. This is the basic output. So we are trying to create an object and we are trying to call the method. Yes, iPhone is ringing. So if I want to have one more method with the same name, so can we try it? Ring. Okay, and again I have created a method with the return type void. So in a class you cannot have two methods with the same name. Okay, so what I should be doing it? So if I want to keep the same name, you can have the same name, but you should have different data types for the method. So now assume I try to take string here, string sung. Okay, see now I'll try to print this song, system.out.print. I'll try to print song. Okay, this is fine. So now in a class we can have multiple methods with the same name but with different data types. So this is called as method overloading. So now whenever I try to call the method phone dot ring, you can see here it's asking me two suggestions. One is a method which has no arguments, the other method which has one more argument that will take string. See, this is the argument, this song is nothing but the argument that we try to pass. And now I'll try to pass hi, hello. So now the output would be, I'll try to run this. Now as you are seeing, iPhone is ringing, hi, hello. Okay, so now system.out.print will print the output in the same line. So if I try to use println and println, so now let's see the output, right? So now what we have done, iPhone is ringing and we are passing a string argument from our start class, but we have the same method name. So method overloading is nothing but a class can have multiple methods with the same name, but you have to make sure it has different data type. So now we understood what is method overloading. In Java, method overloading is one important concept. So now a class can have multiple methods with the same name, but the data type should be different. So now whatever the argument that I'm passing is a string, whatever I'm collecting here in the iPhone class is different. So now in my start class, I am passing a single argument. In my iPhone class, I am trying to collect it in my ring method. So in Java, we have something known as global variable and local variable. So in every programming language, we have global variables and local variables. So let's understand what is this global variable and what is this local variable. So I have an iPhone class. So now I'll try to create a variable with the name. Name is equal to Deepesh. Okay. So now whenever we declare anything inside a class, we call that as a global variable. So now whenever I declare something inside a method, so now I'll try to declare one more variable with the name string. Name is equal to Ramu. Fine. So let's see the output. Let's try to run our ring class, right? We'll try to see what is the output. So now in this ring method, I'll try to print name. Okay, I'll try to print it name. Okay, I'll try to select this and I'll try to print name. Fine. So in this, I'll try to print name. Okay, so you can see the color difference, right? So you can see this name in blue color and this is something in black or light brown. So I'll try to run this program. So let's see the output. Based on that, we'll try to decide what is happening. See, the first thing I called ring. Okay, this is the declaration. I'll go to the implementation. So if you want to go to the implementation, you have to press Control and hover on the text. So open implementation. I'll go to the implementation now. Right, this is my implementation. So what is there? Ramu is there and Ramu is getting printed. So now globally what I have declared it as Deepesh, but what is getting printed in my output? What is getting printed? We'll see again. Okay, yeah, Ramu is getting printed, but what is there in name? Deepesh. Why is this happening? So whenever we try to create a variable inside a method, that variable will have the scope only inside that method. Now I have created a variable name is equal to Ramu. So now whenever I try to print, it tries to take the immediate variable that is there in the method. So now immediate is nothing but the name. It doesn't try to take it from the class. It tries to take it from that method. So now this we call it as local variable. So if you declare a variable inside a method, the variable will be having the scope only inside that method. Outside that method, you will not be able to access that name. So now whatever I have printed is the local variable. Now whatever I am printing in the second execution of my ring, so I am passing hi, hello, okay, that is fine, but still when I go here, I am not printing the song, I am printing the name. The name is nothing but it is trying to take from the global variable. So now when you declare it as a global variable, it can be accessed throughout the class. When you try to declare a variable locally inside a method, it can be accessed only inside that method. I mean to say it has the scope only inside the method that you try to declare. So make sure whether you want the variable to be accessed inside the class or it has to be accessed inside the method, just decide and try to declare it accordingly. So now here we have declared two variables with the same name, but here whenever I try to print this inside my method, I always try to take the immediate variable and it tries to print out. So if I try to print this name, it's nothing but Deepesh, what should I do? Right? We have a keyword, something known as this. So this refers to the current class object. So now this is a keyword which will always try to pick from the class. So now I'll try to use this, okay, this dot name. So you can see the color change. You can see the color change. It's now blue. Now it's not trying to take this variable. Now whenever I use this, it is trying to take the class variable. So now this is a keyword which helps us to take the current class object. So now let's try to print this. Let's see what is the output. Okay. Now can you see what is the output? Deepesh and Deepesh. But what is there here? Name Ramu. This doesn't get printed because we are trying to access the global variable. So if I take off this dot name, what will be the output, it's nothing but the local variable that you have declared as Ramu will be coming up. So now you make sure if you want to declare variables globally or locally. If you declare it locally, you will have the access only inside that method. So now let's see whether this local variable can be accessed outside this method. Okay, I'll just try to change this name to, you know, some variable name like phone number. Okay, I'll try to make it as phone number, and I'll try to make it as 9900990009. Okay, so this is my phone number, and I'll see now I took off this name, so now it is trying to take it from the global variable. That's great. So I'll try to print phone. Okay, so now you can print the phone number, so that's fine. But will I be able to access this phone number inside this method? Let's try. No suggestions, but still if you want to type, you can type the same name. No, you cannot access. What is the error? Phone cannot be resolved to a variable. So it means, so if you have declared a variable inside a method, you have access only inside it. So now this we call it as local variables. So if you declare a variable in the class, so now that can be accessed throughout your class. It might be accessed by any of your methods. So make sure what you want to declare and where you want to declare. If you want to access global variables, use this. So now this is a keyword which is used to access current class objects. So now if you have two variables with the same name and you want to access the global one, as before, you know, we had name. Okay, I'll try to do Control Z. We'll see. We had name. So we have two variables with the same name. You know, in the class level we have the same variable name. In the method level also we have the same name. So if you want to access global name, use this. Okay, now this, right? If you want to access local one, don't use this. So it always try to take the local variable which is declared inside the method when you want to access it. So whenever you use this, make sure it tries to access you the current class object and not which is specific to a method. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Java videos. Please subscribe to our freshersworld.com for more Java related jobs. Thank you.